Otomo Yoshiaki and his conquering army had made a continuous march along the northeastern coast of Kyushu, from southern Bungo to northern Chikuzen, killing those who did not submit and showing a smile of pointed teeth at those who would not or could not draw the sword. Without rest, his army faced two more foes in the north, the Shoni and the Kikuchi, together fielding twice his number, but together they would not fight. The infuriated Shoni seemed willing to take any cost for a chance at Yoshiaki's head.
He's in there, in the claws of the madman. We shall lay my son's spirit to rest today.
Lord, they are a great many, and they have long awaited us. There is no good to be done by engaging them on their own terms.
What? What did you say? You think I will wait a single moment while the barbarian lover holds my son's body like a hunting trophy? Tokinau is your sworn brother. You will draw your sword and set him free no matter the danger, just as he would do for you.
Yes, Lord, I will do as you ask.
Do I see cowardice here? All the more reason to return Tokinau to me. A true son indeed. Begin the attack!
Hello and welcome back to Barbarian Masters, where we're under attack by the Shoni, trying to hit us at Fukuoka Castle. We have the matchlocks inside bombarding them as they approach. They're bringing a force that's smaller than the one we have defending the castle, so that's a bad start, and we're going to thin them out before things even get started, using the same strategy we used against the samurai in southern Bungo, where we position forces outside of the castle to delay the enemy's advance, buying us more time to use the matchlocks against them, since once they're inside the castle they may not be very helpful at all. We are firing mostly at Ashigaru here. The enemy haven't brought many heavy troops, so bows perhaps may be more effective than matchlocks here, since matchlocks are slow to reload and don't do any more or less damage than an arrow against someone with no armor, but it still will do the job and of course will scare the enemy. We've got some samurai who came in as a garrison for this battle, and they're going to face off against the enemy's katana Ashigaru, quickly showing them who's boss in terms of melee skills. But I had matchlocks up on the castle wall firing into this engagement, and that didn't help when the enemy's cavalry came into attack, because the combined effect of being under matchlock fire and being flank attacked by cavalry routed the samurai, so they were actually destroyed really quickly. Matchlocks do scare both sides, plus being under friendly fire gives you a morale penalty, and there's no doubt that some of those matchlocks accidentally shot very close at least to our own samurai, so that probably made things go a lot worse than they could have there. But we still have a plan for this situation. As the enemy now start coming up the walls, we'll reposition our troops inside the castle to begin a regular melee fight on the inside. Meanwhile, Kobayakawa's taken his bodyguards and a unit of light cavalry to rear attack some of the enemy units attacking on the eastern part of the castle. However, the enemy generals are at it again. They immediately come in to join this fight with their high-level Hatamoto guards. They will be fighting our spear infantry, which is nice, and they also ended up fighting my light cavalry. So although we're surrounded here, both of the units we've got on the inside of the surround are strong against the things on the outside, and the enemy are forced to break away, and we're just going to chase them. We want our light cavalry to fight with this Hatamoto. They do have a bonus against them. We actually lost on the west side of the castle though. The enemy spear infantry was significantly higher level than ours and just cut our men down, so we're going to have to fall back and allow the enemy into the castle and start another battle on the inside, where it's just going to be another grind where we'll hope to find some victory. We keep chasing down the enemy generals with our light cavalry, desperate to take out some of them to reduce the enemy's morale, and here we have a nice setup where the enemy generals have their back to the wall, meaning our archers can fire into their unit. The only problem here was that a reserve unit of Naginata Ashigaru appeared from somewhere and rear attacked my light cavalry, extremely dangerous. Luckily I saw it at the exact moment they made contact and ordered our men to escape, and because of that many of them will survive. The surround was not quite completed. Their other generals have been having trouble fighting against our spear units and have been taking matchlock and bow fire the whole time, so they're beginning to run out of troops. Things getting a bit better for the Shoni on the western attack since they're just getting in and fighting in a straight melee. The enemy's troops, mostly high level than ours, will do okay, but we have more troops than they do, so I'm hoping for a victory here eventually. But still preparing Yoshiaki to take part in the melee if he needs to. He will be our final line, although we can always throw in matchlocks and bows into melee if we get desperate. The enemy's numbers and morale will gradually dwindle here, and with the results of the rest of the battle coming in, they're probably going to want to just give up. We've charged out here to take out their archers, and most of their attack on the eastern side of the castle has been completely destroyed. We're just sweeping up their generals now. The generals are pretty good about avoiding being attacked by my cavalry. Very nice micro from the AI actually, but at the very last second there, one of their generals did end up getting killed and others escaping. That's going to bring an end to the fight, a decisive victory, pretty much what we expected given what the enemy had to make their attack. They did prove a little bit more formidable than expected, but the results are still fine. A lot of our losses among garrison units like the samurai and that lost unit of Ashigaru, those don't really matter because you just get them back for free at the end of the turn, and of course we'll have replenishment to start building up the rest of our forces as well after this. So a pretty good exchange, a level up for Yoshiaki, and we destroyed all of the Shoni in the end there. All the generals who escaped and all the troops who escaped were just deleted, so that's going to leave the Shoni in trouble. But the Uichi there coming in with a fleet to blockade our trade port. We're going to have to look into that. We do need to take the naval side of things more seriously if we're going to get blockaded all the time. But before we go into that, I wanted to quickly take this opportunity to hit the Shoni while they're down. With their force locally destroyed, I thought we can probably hit South Chikuzen. It looks like that is correct. They just have a tiny force around the place with their garrison coming in to help. I thought we can just auto-resolve that, and it's going to go fine, leaving the Shoni in an absolutely terrible position with only one region, probably no forces, and ultimately at our mercy. Where's little Yasumuchi? Given Lord Shoni's age, I will negotiate in his stead. You think yourself more reasoned than a child? The first Shoni man I've met to do so. Lord Otomo, I understand you wish to discuss a truce. That's a strange way of putting it. If I remember correctly, my terms were closer to demanding your surrender. Yes, Lord, those are indeed the terms we have considered. We have taken counsel with Lord Shoni and his regents, and long debated the matter of whether the obligations of the grandfather need doom the grandson. Do you agree to the surrender, or not? Yes, Lord Otomo. We invite you to meet with Lord Shoni, and he will swear himself to you. Good. That is all I needed to hear. Speak with my attendants if there is anything else. There is one further matter to discuss, Lord, surely. And what might that be? Lord Shoni is quite sure that he does not want any of your Nanban visitors to enter his lands. I thought we might make such a measure part of the treaty. This is not a matter for discussion. Lord Shoni will welcome the barbarians if I order him to, and that is the end of it. Write that in the treaty if you need a reminder. So thanks to that new deal, it seems like we can rely on the Shoni to not bother us for a while at least. But as winter hits, we get some bad news. Our ally, the Aso clan, who controlled the path from western to eastern Kyushu, has been destroyed, and it's been destroyed by the Kikuchi, the enemy we're at war with, as a result of our vassal previously being destroyed by them. So they now control at least 3 territories and have access to our capital region should they wish it. And moving this tiny army back, that's Lord Uno, who we've heard referred to a few times in this series. He'll get more involved a little bit later on. So we're kind of at their mercy, but it did look like they were moving west with their army, so at least we're probably not going to be attacked immediately. We can't move our main force out from Chikuzen because of the public order. They need to wait there, and we need to untax it in order to secure it and prevent it from just rebelling. So we'll try and do that. And we need to get rid of the fact that the Uichi are blockading our ports. You can see we are bankrupt right now, so this is an opportune time to get rid of them. We have more ships than them, fortunately, and we have a medium bune, which has a big presence on the balance bar compared to a bow koboya, so we just push them away basically. Their ship's going to run off and hide near our other docks, but we've got our trading docks back, so our income is going to be restored. We'll want to get more ships eventually to go take out the Uichi's ports to stop this from happening again. But later in the winter we get some good news to reverse the bad news from earlier. The Eso clan is back. They must have rebelled and thrown off the Kikuchi, and on top of that they want to resume our previous relationship, which is going to be very handy for us indeed, so we can go back to trading with them, resume military alliance and get military access, so we can now walk between the two sides of the island. And these guys aren't at war now with the Kikuchi, so that means they're going to provide a buffer zone between us. You can see I considered trying to get them to go in, but it would make the deal too complicated, so we'll leave them as a buffer. Now the Kikuchi can't reach eastern Kyushu, so the little chance they made for themselves to come and attack all of our undefended territories has now faded away, and we're going to be much safer as a result. Now, while I was here on the diplomacy screen, I started asking for trade again with some of the bigger clans, and at last they were actually willing to trade with us. Perhaps because we've now got more trade resources and are more respected, we can actually get these deals to go through. So that's going to provide a nice boost to our income if we can once again clear out the Uichi here, who came back to blockade our ports. But we had ships already in the port, so they can just come right out and defeat the enemy with another ship coming in from behind to reinforce. And two of their ships escaped there, and we're not going to let them survive. We want to finish this matter off, so we'll send all the ships we have to destroy them, and once again we have a big advantage, so we can just get rid of them in an auto-resolve. We do lose one of our really damaged ships there, but that's a pretty good trade. I think it was 1 for 3 overall. So with that done, we'll continue building our naval strength, and as I said, we want to go and try and just destroy the Uichi's naval capabilities, which is what I did as spring broke. Unfortunately, they had a ship in their dock, which means you can't destroy the dock from the sea. And we can also spot their army from this position. Their army is pretty big, so we want to blockade their ports at least. This means they can't trade for one thing, and they can't have that army sail out using that ship. So this is going to protect us, and we're actually pretty fortunate they haven't just come and landed that army so far, because we would have been very vulnerable to such an attack. Now also in spring we have the public order capabilities to move out of Chikuzen, or at least we just about do. As long as you have stable public order next turn, it's safe to move out, because it takes 2 turns to have a rebellion occur. So Yoshiaki just going to go stand on a bridge. That's going to give him some defensive abilities against the Kikuchi if they attacked. They didn't, so in the next turn I continued moving on, but found out that there they are. They're coming for us right now with a much bigger army. So I'm just going to run straight back to the bridge and hide there for a second, because we may be able to turn this into a defensive battle where the bridge will allow us to overcome the enemy's numbers by forcing them through choke points, stopping them from surrounding us at least, perhaps also throwing these drafted Ashigaru into our force, because the enemy's numbers are far greater than ours. We were quite fortunate though in that the Kikuchi did not bring their second army over to take part in this fight. They're going to invade with just the bigger force, so the balance bar only slightly in their favour. Their build's pretty good in terms of fighting us. They've got archers to shoot across the river and lots of sword Ashigaru who should be able to beat our spear Ashigaru, although you can see we have lots of experienced troops, so that may not be the case. But more importantly, we're going to have the bridge on our side, so the tactical advantages that may bring should be what makes this battle winnable.
We don't have much time. The enemy intends to force the bridge with everything they've got. Our lord orders that one company block the bridgehead. The men doing so will face everything at once, and will not be able to retreat until the battle is won. Considerable loss of life can be expected. I will not force this on any of you. Will one of you volunteer?
General, I volunteer my men for this duty.
You are sure?
My troops are steady and solid. Drafted men won't do here. And we aren't afraid of death. Now that we know what awaits us by the grace of the Lord, we will happily face any end that pleases him.
So be it. You're right. Just keep them on that bridge, and we'll do the rest. I'm sure the great Creator will do its part too.
So our strategy is a simple one. Stop the enemy on the bridge, and they're sending most of their forces to just that one bridge, so we don't need to worry about the 2 other crossings on the map. All of our missile units will be concentrated around the bridge to just hit the enemy with everything we have once we've locked them in position. We can also get some early attacks by firing across the river as the enemy are forming up, dropping some arrows onto their general there, and our matchlocks are opening up on the first unit that has been tasked with getting across the bridge. Since this unit's coming in on its own, it is going to be subject to a lot of range fire. I guess this is going to reveal to the enemy the power of our ranged attack. This could be taken as a probing assault from the enemy, sacrificing a unit to test the validity of their plan of getting across the bridge. One thing they'll have working in their favour is the bridge itself, actually, because the railings on the side aren't passable to missiles, and there's actually a small invisible wall even above them. So they're kind of protected from fire coming in from the sides as they cross the bridge. On the other side, they've got some spearmen to hack their way through, and that's going to take them a while, but they've got a whole army to do it with. We don't have very much in terms of melee units, so they can certainly hack through all of our guys eventually. It's up to our missile units to turn this fight before we lose everything, essentially. We're going to have our archers positioned in the middle, trying to fire at the units on our side of the river, since they can somewhat arc it over our own troops. The matchlocks are going to be tasked with firing at more distant units. Right now they're just glitching out. The matchlocks, when they're on fire by rank but don't have line of sight, they just stand up and sit down all the time, which you have to kind of notice happening as the player and re-task them, because the fire at will doesn't pick a new target if they can't see their current target, unfortunately. Now the enemy do have a lot of archers. They're going to be firing across the river and putting pressure on us the whole time, and those archers are mostly focusing on our own archers, which is good. We want to keep the matchlocks as alive as possible, because the raw power they have is going to be pretty high in this battle where the enemy is stuck standing right in front of them. You can see we're just firing into this block of enemy troops on the bridge, and that's going to be doing big damage. They can't escape, they can't dodge this matchlock fire now. We saw some of the arrows they're hitting our archers, not doing too much damage. We'll be doing more back to them with our closer range return volleys into their infantry. I'm also going to get some of the matchlocks to fire at the enemy's archers to start thinning them out. Now Kobayakawa has taken our light cavalry out once again to use the other river crossings to get behind the enemy's army to see what he can do. There's an interesting target back here, because one of the enemy generals is sitting as rear guard, and he is going to be weak against those light cavalry, so I'm moving in for an attack. You can see the damage that my matchlocks are doing on the enemy's archers here. We're starting to destroy entire units with sustained fire, and the archers still aren't firing back at the matchlocks, so that was great. The light cavalry attack went okay. We managed to get the enemy's general. He didn't run away from us or anything, but he's also standing kind of inside a spear unit, so some of the units engaging with the spears, that's not as good, but the enemy's going to wander away here with their general, and we can just pursue them, taking the fight away from their infantry, away from the spearmen where we'll be in trouble, and try and isolate and kill that general. They've got another general trying to push his way across the bridge here and failing, and he may have even been killed by that fire. I'm not sure which general just died, but whoever it was their commanding general, so the enemy is going to get that morale debuff now. Very nice. We're putting pressure on all their generals. They're all damaged right now, having attempted to get across the bridge, and the one at the back is surrounded. Kobayakawa and the light cavalry have him now, basically. We'll take him down. I could use those cavalry to come back and rear attack the enemy's bulk here, but they've got so many spearmen hiding among it that it would be a dangerous move. Really, we need infantry to make an attack here. I've got some infantry on the way, but they're going to be a while, and most of our infantry is going to need to stay on our side of the river because they are starting to break through. They've gained ground, they've done massive damage to the first unit that was trying to hold them back, and they're pushing our lines backwards towards our archer and matchlock positions. We need to keep the enemy locked in place, and if it means sacrificing even more melee units, that could be worth it, considering the damage we're doing with this ranged fire. Those Christians say that the Master of Reality is pure and good, that he loves us all. Look at how much he loves us. He gives us the power of fire and thunder to shatter each other into pieces in his name. Our men feel his love in the heat of their matchlock barrels as they fire again and again and again into a sprawling mess of prey and blood. This is his power. This is his will.
and they are under my control.
As you can see, I got an infantry unit around behind the enemy force and it's beginning to engage them while my cavalry are dodging some spears there. More infantry's on the way. The main effect this attack had was not to destroy enemy units, but to move them away. Most of the enemy's melee infantry went away from where all their archers were positioned, and that's going to present a very interesting opportunity for those cavalry to now sweep back in and smash those archers up. Although they didn't necessarily need to, most of the archers were already dead at this point, thanks to the matchlock fire that's been cutting them down for the whole battle, but those that are here are going to be routed by this attack. So we escape quickly before the matchlocks shoot our own men, and now let that rout spread forwards into the enemy's main bulk of troops, and that ends the battle all of a sudden. These troops try to escape, but they're right next to our own units, so many of them will just be attacked by the survivors, now hoping to take revenge after that brutal fight. They're going to lose a lot of men here, and that's going to bring an end to the battle. A decisive victory, exactly what we needed. Now I ended the battle without chasing the enemy routers down. I could have destroyed a large number of their troops here, because I thought if you just ended a battle while the enemy was still in contact with you, basically, it deleted them when you got to the strategy map. It just removed them as if you had chased them down while routing. That appeared not to be the case though. It usually works. Didn't work here. A lot of the enemy is going to escape because of that. Just checking the kill tables here to confirm that it was indeed the matchlocks racking up the most kills in that fight, as you might expect. So good work from them. A very nice battle for using a matchlock indeed. We've shown the enemy its power. So because the enemy had some survivors there, we are going to have to chase them down as we go into the next turn. It was an auto-resolve situation. I considered fighting this myself to minimize casualties, but thought I would chance it on the auto-resolve, and the result was pretty much fine. Like in the previous battle, we killed about 4 times as many as we lost, so the Kikuchi being thoroughly punished here, their forces getting wiped out, and we do still have the strength we need to push on, because we want now to exploit their defeats by turning it into a territorial gain for us. They've got a couple of troops waiting nearby. I went into ambush position for this turn, and the enemy just didn't do anything with their forces. They did, though, offer me a peace deal. It seems they have recognized what's going on here. Sensible of them to make this offer. And I wanted to see what else they would give me if they were so willing for peace, to see if I could get anything that was of interest. I could get military alliance with them and try and use them in a war against someone else, but I thought about this for a while before just rejecting the idea, because we're in a position to take more from them. We don't want to negotiate peace, even if they are going to give us something that might profit us in the long run. It's not worth risking anything like that. We'll just take some territory from them. So we'll move on. I attacked their army and it fell back. It's still in reinforcement range of their castle though. As I come into the siege, they're going to join the battle, but because they are only reinforcements, this presents us with an opportunity to take the castle before the reinforcements arrive on the battle map. Just rush the castle, take the capture point, and not fight all of their samurai here. That would be a very nice arrangement and get us some territory out of this war.
The Kikuchi family line was not ended. If we ask around, it may be possible to determine the location of survivors.
We don't need their help. We attack now.
The men are tired of battle, Lord. The Kikuchi would be able to rally the locals to raise fresh troops.
The Kikuchi lost the lands I entrusted to them. The Kikuchi are defeated. If I was to be seen on the same island as their banner, I would be humiliated. We take this castle and we keep it. That is our prize for avenging their defeat and the end of their story.
If you think it's possible, Lord.
You doubt my strategy? Have I ever failed you, Kobayakawa?
No, Lord. I am confident in our victory.
That makes 2 of us then. Take half the army and advance from the east. Attack on my signal and not before.
Our general is in great
we're moving in to make this capture. As we approach the enemy castle, they do have some archers who'll be raining arrows down on our Ashigaru. Not too much we can do about that. We're attacking from angles that minimize the extent to which the arrows can see us, so it's actually only a few of them hitting us just at an awkward angle there. Soon we'll be out of their arc of fire and can advance in greater safety. This group's already started the climb. Our objective is to take the Tenshu, so I'm climbing mainly into the part of the castle nearest to the Tenshu. However, all the enemy need to do to stop me from taking it is to have at least one soldier standing on the capture point, and this unit that appears to counter my invasion actually does get a couple of its men onto the capture point. That means we can't take it right away. We have to fight and defeat this unit before we can, and the forces we have locally are inferior. I only have drafted troops there against their regular trained troops, and I think the enemy may have superior numbers as well. We need to get more troops inside to try and distract them. That first unit that we sent in routed there and runs away, but the unit that was fighting it's coming over towards my distracting troops. You can see I brought most of my other forces to come and stand in a different part of the castle, hoping to draw the fight generally away from the Tenshu, while I've got a few guys you can just about see they're waiting around the corner to run in and take the Tenshu as soon as possible. Kobyakawa's forces attacking from the east are arriving now as well, and they're going to provide a pretty big distraction. Getting a nice fight here against their archers with our sword troops, that's ideal. We'll get a very good trade there. Not that we need to as part of our plan, it's just going on the side. But we do need to remember we have a time limit in general in this battle because the enemy's reinforcements are coming in, of course. We need to conclude this operation before those reinforcements hit us, and are now desperately getting everyone who's still outside the castle to climb the walls. We've been unable to take a gate, so we need to get inside before we're engaged in an isolated fashion outside. That would be very dangerous. But we do get our unit onto the capture point here as I had hoped, so now they just need to stand there and wait, and everyone else needs to keep this melee going just off the capture point so the enemy doesn't break any units off to come and block the capture. We were fortunate in that this endeavour succeeded. So now as the fight continues, the timer runs down to 0 and it just ends the battle. It basically simulates the entire enemy army surrendering because the Tenshu has been captured, and that's a decisive victory. We just about pulled it off as the enemy's reinforcements arrived, just as they were coming through the gate, in fact, I seem to remember. We did lose a full unit of our drafted troops, and our losses in general were sufficient that it's only a close victory. But the nice thing is that the enemy's reinforcement troops, who we didn't fight in that battle, are just removed from the map because they counter surrendering along with the garrison. So we actually took down a lot more enemies than it looked like we did there. We had the option to recreate the Kamachi clan and give them back their territory, but as Yoshiaki mentioned earlier, we're not going to be doing that. We will take this as a prize for our war with the Kikuchi. There's one more prize we can get though, and that is a new vassal in the Kikuchi themselves. They've lost all of their forces, they're now down to just one territory. We can offer them a deal where they will swear to us in exchange for us not coming and just taking that territory for ourselves, which is fine because our forces are slightly beaten up and public order is going to be really bad in our newly captured regions. We need this chance to have some breathing room, and this is exactly what we get. The deal goes through. Perfect. Now we can consolidate our territory, start building our economy, spread Christianity and improve public order across all of our new territory, and we have complete peace in northern Kyushu with which to do so. We're only at war with Oichi and they are under naval blockade, so they can't bother us right now. The perfect scenario for a bit of peace and quiet. Word of the battle at Kurume Bridge spread quickly throughout the land. Those who doubted the power of the Western firearms could be convinced by such tales that the loud and dangerous weapons had use after all, if no honour. However, if they wished to test out some for themselves, they would have found that all the matchlocks sent to Japan were being bought at any price by the agents of the Otomo clan. It would be their weapon alone for the time being, and in Kyushu at least, it was their victories alone that would matter. So that is all for this episode. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to the OfficiallyDevin patrons for making this video happen. We'll find that we aren't the only ambitious clan in Kyushu, and we'll be forcing the Europeans to give us a very fancy present indeed in the next episode of Barbarian Masters.